In January 1969, Richard Nixon began his presidency. As a Republican, he was conservative on social issues and promised to be tough on crime, but he did use floating coalition strategies when he issued social reforms. This helped him expand his political base. While not really ideological about some social issues, he grew up very poor, and that did impact some of his decisions. Enacted the Supplementary Security Income Program that revised the food stamp program and indexed it for rising costs of food. He also surprised Democrats when he decided to revamp the welfare system and start a family assistance plan. These acts provided for elderly, those with mental disorders, and physical disabilities, including Vietnam veterans. 3.1 million people were enrolled in SSI in 1969, and it has grown to 8.3 million in 2015. The civil rights movement grew in the 1970s to include not only race but gender, people with disabilities, and gay rights. Between 1971 and 1974, Congress enacted many laws banning gender discrimination. The Justice Department sued companies such as AT&T for discriminating against women and denying qualified women promotions in the company. President Nixon approved the EOA, which stands for Equal Opportunity Act. The act prohibits discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, age, disability, national origin, political beliefs, marital or family status. The government then pursued discrimination cases. Congress also passed the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, preventing discrimination of people with disabilities. This led the way to making public buildings, job areas, and public parks accessible to people with disabilities. The Occupational Safety Health Act of 1970, now known as OSHA, was a landmark piece of legislation. Government now monitored businesses and industries to ensure safe work environments for its employees. On January 22, 1973, the Supreme Court issued its decision of Roe v. Wade and ruled that the 14th Amendment ensures a woman's right to privacy, which then protects a woman's right to choose whether to have an abortion. This was a landmark case still debated today. In 1974, the Housing and Community Development Act allowed the government to help pay for 70% of housing expenses to private landlords for people with an income lower than 40% of the median in an area. This allowed people living in extreme poverty to have housing. On August 9, 1974, Nixon resigned from the presidency in order to avoid being impeached for the Watergate scandal. The scandal involved 5 men who broke into the Democratic National Headquarters to steal information. Nixon's administration covered it up. Gerald Ford became president, and little social reform happened at that point. The 1970s were a time when women and minorities worked hard to achieve civil rights. Women were working to achieve equal pay for the same work, maternity leave, child care, and other civil rights. Women like Phyllis Schlafly wanted to preserve traditional gender roles and fought against women's rights in the ERA. One social leader in the 1970s was Marian Wright Edelman. She was a graduate of Yale Law School and the first African American woman to be admitted to the bar in Mississippi. She started the Children's Defense Fund in 1973. This organization lobbies for children who do not have a voice. The CDF promotes health, early childhood education, prevention, and treatments of disease and helps adolescents stay in school. Their mission is to leave no child left behind. The 1970s began a wave of social welfare reform that benefits society today.